PFF just dropped a brand new 3-round mock draft, so we're going to run through that, see who they had Atlanta taking in rounds 1, 2, and 3. Welcome into Falcons Today. Matthew Peterson here, and I don't know about you guys, but I love just kind of breathing in, soaking in, bathing in mock drafts, because you get to see different ideas, right? Different names, different prospects, and familiarize yourself with a handful of routes Atlanta could go at number 8. Now, before we look at any picks, I want to give a quick shout out to 2 people who won the comment challenge from Monday's video, Tuesdays, I can't remember already, but Mark and Baby Sharker. Mark put up over 300 comments. Baby Sharker, I quite literally lost count. So, thank you guys. I think I spent about 30 minutes of my life trying to keep track of all the comments you guys had. So thank you very much for commenting away. And hey, if you want the Falcons to draft your prospect, right, your number 1 guy, if you want Terry Fontenot to be sitting in this war room going, you know what, I think we got to call that one guy in Alpharetta and get his input, then like today's video. That way, you never know. Maybe the good football YouTube gods out there will give you your draft prospect in round 1. Now let's turn our attention to PFF's mock draft, where they had Atlanta going with Lukas Van Ness, 8th overall out of Iowa. Now, the draft buzz / rumors so far have largely centered around 2 guys. Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback out of Oregon, and Texas Tech's edge rusher Tyree Wilson. So, those have been the 2 players linked to the Falcons the most, I would say, so far. So now we get a bit of a curveball, right? A change-up from PFF, who throws a different name our way, and that is Van Ness, who honestly sounds like a distant cousin of the Winklevoss twins, which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but let's see what Michael Renner from PFF said about him. Van Ness is a distinctly different type of edge than what the Falcons currently have. He has interior versatility and can be a hard edge setter early in his career. Now, the Falcons did meet with Van Ness back during the Combine, but they have not held a top 30 visit with him since. This is smokescreen season, right? I want to remind you guys that just because they meet with someone does not mean they're going to draft him, or just because they don't meet with someone does not mean they're not going to draft him. So just kind of keep that in balance a little bit, but I think there is something to, if you're picking 8, you can visit with 10 guys and be guaranteed you're going to get one of them. So I would imagine for the 8th overall pick, they would do as much homework as possible and bring their eventual draftee for a visit in, but you never know. Crazy shit happens. It's the NFL draft. Now, in his career at Iowa City, 70 tackles, 19 tackles for loss, 13 sacks, and 1 pass breakup through 26 games. Really only a contributor the last 2 seasons. Now, it was weird at Iowa. You would think someone who goes 8th overall would be a bit more productive or get more runway for the Hawkeyes. He was a rotational defensive lineman. I think the NFL is going to utilize him a much better way than the Hawkeyes did. Now, where would he fit on this defense? Would he be a defensive end? He's a versatile guy. He bounced around the defensive line a ton. So would he be in a 3-4 front, a 3-5 technique-ish, or would he line up on the outside, right? Like a Caden Ellis or a Lorenzo Carter and come off the edge? I'm really not sure. That is for NFL coaches to figure out where he could best be utilized. If I had to guess, I think he would be down a 3-point stance on the defensive line, but maybe in obvious passing situations, if the Falcons want to get an extra edge rusher out there, right, they kind of bump. Well, you're going to still keep your nose tackle, but you get the gist of you could have a variety of different looks for Van Ness. So, with that being said, do you want Atlanta to draft Lukas Van Ness? Give me a D for draft or P for pass. If you didn't watch much Iowa football last year, I don't really blame you. So I'm going to suggest you go ahead and watch some highlights of his. Now, they are highlights. Everyone looks good in highlights, but I can see why some team might fall in love with him and take him in the top 10 this year. If I had to rank my edge rushers for this draft class, because I have been very outspoken that Atlanta needs to add more pass rushers, Will Anderson's number 1. He won't be there at number 8, so barring a trade up, he's sort of off of our radar. Tyree Wilson, the guy just has every tool that GMs and coaches fall in love with. He's got the speed, he's got the size, and he's got the flexibility. You don't often find all 3 traits in one player. Lukas Van Ness is sort of a jack of all trades. He can get after the quarterback. He can stop the run. He is a nightmare for offensive linemen. Nolan Smith out of Georgia and Myles Murphy round out my top 5. Now, if we want to compare them just statistically, here are the 2022 stats for the top 4 guys on my list. Myles Murphy, I think, is a little bit too early for number 8 overall, and I can honestly make the same argument for Lukas Van Ness, but sometimes we are wrong. I think, actually, we are often wrong when it comes to draft prospects and big boards and things like that. So just because someone else has them higher on their list does not mean that's always right. Go look at literally any draft from any time in history, and you will see, wow, that wide receiver went before that wide receiver. That defensive line went before that defensive lineman. It's the draft. It's more or less a crapshoot. In round 2 in PFF's mock draft, they went offensive line for Atlanta. This is North Dakota State's Cody Mauch. So, Michael Renner from PFF said this on the Bison. There is no more ideal fit in this draft than this one. It has to happen. Mauch is the single best offensive lineman on the move in the draft class and goes into an offense that gets its linemen going laterally more than anyone else in the league. Now, last season for Mauch, PFF graded him quite nicely. Just 1 sack allowed, 2 hits, 6 hurries, and a run grade of 91.2. So this could be your Elijah Wilkinson replacement right at the left guard position, because outside of center, every other job is pretty much locked up, to say the least. Now, he says there is no more ideal fit, and I do agree that Atlanta likes to have a run-heavy scheme type of offensive line, right? They like to move forward with their group, and you need athletic offensive linemen to do that, not just big, fat anchors who can drop back but unable to push people forward. But Mauch, he's not going to be an offensive tackle if it comes to Atlanta. Now, you often hear about looking at combine measurements and hand size for quarterbacks. You're like, how much does that really matter? If you want my opinion on 2 measurements that actually do carry more weight than others, I think it comes for cornerbacks in height, because an extra 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 an inch in wingspan and height for a corner, that's the difference between getting mossed and a pass breakup. And I think arm length for offensive linemen, if you want to know if they can be a good tackle or not, an extra few inches or so will be the difference of greeting a defensive end or letting him get by you with his speed. He's got shorter arms, a bit of an alligator arm guy, just 32 inches, I think, 34 inches. So some draft experts have him moving inside as a result of that. I mean, for example, Paris Johnson from Ohio State, he's got 36-inch longs. Peter Skoronsky from Northwestern got 32-inch longs. So 4 inches, to some is a big deal. So just keep that in mind. Now, when we look at this offensive line here, Jake Matthews, Chris Lindstrom, and Caleb McGarry, their jobs are absolutely set in stone. No other way around it. I think people could make arguments at the bar for left guard and center, maybe not being so permanent marker-esque and maybe more pencil. So the Falcons do need a left guard. This could be a fun pick if they think, hey, if we move him to left guard, he's got the speed element. For example, when Mauch got to campus at North Dakota State, he was a tight end. He put on 40 pounds to be an offensive lineman. So at its core, he's not a fat guy. He's a skinny guy. He can move. Can he go back to that? We'll have to wait and see. Now, when it comes to the Atlanta Falcons, we are the go-to news and rumors channel on YouTube. We recently crossed 11,000 subscribers. We're on the road to 12K now, so hop aboard if you have not already. Choo-choo, baby. Hit that sub button and don't miss a thing when it comes to your dirty birds. Now, we're going to look at round 3 in PFF's mock draft in just a brief moment. But speaking of the NFL draft, get the official Atlanta Falcons 2023 NFL draft hat today when you go to chatsports.com/ATL hat. I put that link in the comments and the description of today's video. For round 3, PFF had Atlanta going running back Tyjae Spears out of Tulane. Now, every year there are a couple guys who sort of just steal the spotlight after the season is over and win the Senior Bowl or win the Combine. Tyjae Spears won the Senior Bowl. Now, last year for the Green Wave, 1,500 yards, 19 touchdowns. And every time he touched the rock, 6.9 yards a pop. If you remember that Cotton Bowl, that is sort of where everyone nationally watched Tulane and go, okay, they've got some guys here. Now, he's not actually the best athlete, which I think we just love to assume, oh, if you're a shorter back, you got to have insane speed. Not really the case with Spears. He's more shifty, actually. He's just tough to bring down. He didn't run at the 40. He didn't run a 40 at the combine, but the other testings he did, which were limited, he ranked 9th in athleticism amongst running backs. Definitely would be a fun pick, right? A change of pace back for sure. Now, when we look at the Falcons running back room, does it really need another back into it? I love the way Algier ended the season last year. You got CP84 for one more season, and Caleb Huntley might be one of the better running back 3s in the NFL. So I don't know if running back in round 3 is a big need for Atlanta, but I love best player available. So if they think Tyjae Spears is the next guy, I won't be too upset about it. Now here were the results from PFF's 3-round mock draft. Lukas Van Ness in round 1, Cody Mauch in round 2, Spears in round 3. If you had to grade this mock draft, what grade would you give it? I'm going to tell you my grade in just a second, but first, let me know in the comment section what grade you would give it. For me, I'm going to go C+, actually. I think 8 for Van Ness is a bit on the earlier side. Now, if he is a great player, who cares where you get him, right? I'm just not that sold on him at that level. As for Cody Mauch, I don't know, round 2, drafting a guy who you're not quite sure if he's a tackle or guard, seems a bit on the earlier side for me. And then for Spears, I like the player, and I know this kind of goes against what I say often about just ignore needs and get best player available because you never know what you'll need in a season or two. But I think for round 3, maybe wide receiver would have made more sense for Atlanta without them going wide receiver in round 2 or round 1. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already. We keep you guys in the loop. Anytime a big mock draft drops, we get you the results. News, rumors, we keep you in the loop. So hit that sub button if you have not already.